Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic. You will see behind me here with another Sigenergy system, same as what we've had on a few videos of late. So in this one I wanted to really focus in on things that a consumer might want to know and some of the things that you can add into these systems that maybe aren't obvious from the outset. This one is one of those because we've got a heat pump integrated through this gateway, but we're going to get into all of that through the course of this video. As the thumbnail might have given away, I made a little bit of a mistake on this one. We'll get into what that was and how it happened and also how we dealt with it. These things do crop up from time to time. However well you try and avoid them, it is just the nature of the beast. And I've got nothing to hide from with that. We're all only human, so I just want to explain and share that in the course of this video. Before we go on any further, if you are a customer and you're looking for a system in your own home, there'll be a link over to our website where you can go off, pop your details in. It'd be an absolute pleasure to see the kind of kit you would like and put a proposal forward in your home. But without any further waffle at the start, we're going to dive into all of this behind me here, talk about what it can do and how we've got it set up in the app, and then we'll revisit the mistake that I made in the course of proposing this system. So we'll start with the easy bit, and this is the Sigenergy stack. So we've got a 10 kilowatt inverter here with two 8 kilowatt hour modules. So these modules can output 4 kilowatts of power each battery. So although it's a 10 kilowatt inverter, the batteries can only supply 4 kilowatts of power each. So in this case, if we're running on pure battery power, we've got 8 kilowatts of power through that inverter. Obviously, there's some PV generation, or we want to take power from the grid, that can supplement it. So we could still get 10 kilowatts through the inverter if it's sunny and we're depleting the batteries. There could be every prospect in the future on this one that the batteries grow. So we spec the inverter with that in mind, so then we're not having to spend money to get a larger inverter when that does happen. You can see here we've allowed space at the top for this system to grow, so it can do so. On the side of your inverter is where all of the cables come in and are terminated. So if I spin you around there, you should be able to see we have got all of our PV cables and our AC cables in the side of the inverter. So they are bringing the sunshine off the roof basically into the MC4 plugs on the side. The inverter works its magic, converts that to AC power to supply your home, or drops it straight into the batteries below if they're needing a bit of a charge up. We've also got an AC lead coming off the inverter. It's the same size as this one here, and that's HO7, 10mm, 3 core. So that's bringing our line, neutral and earth back into the gateway, or equally taking power through the gateway back to the inverter and the batteries if you're charging overnight. And then we've got a comms cable which links the inverter to the gateway, and that's so they can share connectivity, talk to each other, and form a hardwired system of themselves. And it's the same with the EV charger on this one as well. So we've got an EV charger just out the garage, I'll show you that in a minute, and that joins the system through a hardwired connection as well. So our cable route on this one, our DC is coming down here. I'll show you it on the outside of the building as well, but we're in a bit of trunking behind there, runs into the back, and then we come across out the side of the inverter here into our DC isolator, and then it returns back from the DC isolator into the inverter. Our AC feed is through this AC isolator here from Proteus. That's a 63 amp rated isolator. They're about the best in the market, these ones. The wiring room and longevity of the product, we love them. So that's where we've utilised that. With this, we've not put any trunking underneath, and the reason for that was we've got a lot going on in terms of the tails coming from multiple directions, and it just wasn't going to work in this case. We've also had to integrate this distribution board here. So we've popped some 75 by 75 trunking in just to try and drag everything together and then loop it in underneath the gateway. So we have our tails coming in which bring our grid feed. We have some tails which drop out of the smart port to this heat pump board here, and we have some tails which run off to our consumer unit. And that was actually a good run, so it wasn't on a fuse out of the meter cabinet before, but they run across the top here to this consumer unit over there. So it wasn't fabulously done, but it was as we found it. And obviously in reworking this, we've now got protective measures on our tails, so we've improved things on that front as well. So inside the gateway, and we've shown these a lot on the channel before in how we set them up, these 3 ports here are for you to connect in your Sigenergy store stacks basically. So if you want, you can have 3 full stacks by this gateway, However, in most domestic applications on a single phase system, it's really unlikely you're ever going to go beyond just one. So we make use of these for some other devices. You can see we've got the EV charger in here and also our Tigo hub. Now with that, the EV charger, it's still seen as a consumed amount of energy through the backup port, because these are all CT'd higher up in the gateway. However, because the system knows it's the EV charger, it kind of accounts for that. The Tigo hub is still seen as a regular load, as it would be if it was through the backup port. We've also got our SPD in here, which is making sure we're protected for any transient voltages on the supply network on the AC side, and protecting us with all of that as well. So you can see we've got our heat pump DB here, and we can power that on now. So the heat pump DB is running off, I forget which way around the contactors are, to be fair, but one of these contactors is pulled in via the smart port, and that then supplies power through this heat pump breaker, as we've termed it, and we drop down in tails to this consumer unit here, which has been installed by Octopus not that long ago, look, 19th of June, and we're here now about a month later, and that's taking power off to the Immersion and Cozy hub, and also the Cozy 6 supply. I think it's actually a Cozy 9, we'll have a look at that. So that's got its tails running off the heat pump board, and we'll speak a bit about why that's useful if you want to wire it doesn't have to be a heat pump, it could be an air conditioning unit, it could be an EV charger if you want, or it could be some separate circuits that you're maybe not that fussed about if you go off-grid. You can wire those through there, and then in an off-grid scenario you can shut all that down to preserve your battery power. So the grid comes into here, which is basically from your electricity meter. When the grid is lost, this contactor swings over and remains powered if you've got battery capacity and solar generation coming on. One of the questions I get asked is if solar's producing, is that still utilised when you're off grid with this system? It absolutely is. The only place that does fall foul is if you use the smart port for third-party PV. Sometimes, depending on the brand and model, they don't all keep running. There's like a frequency shift that the system does to try and spit out systems that aren't really compatible with what Sigenergy are trying to do. So you do have to check that. Most systems now are compatible. And again, as you are off-grid, if you've got that third-party inverter, you can end up with your voltage rising because it keeps producing. The batteries are full, you're not consuming it, your voltage rises. So what it does is monitors for that, and then frequency shifts out the smart port for your PV. Whereas if you were to wire them into one of these breakers down here, if you to utilise that for PV, I don't believe it does the frequency shift to get rid of them in the same way. So that's one to watch and double check. If we're ever bringing PV in, it's always through the house consumer unit by separate metering, or if we've got a gateway and backup systems, we're using the smart port for that by default, and we stick other devices via the RS485 comms for the system to know what that was. So you can see underneath the bottom of the inverter here, we've got our tails cables coming in. We've tried to keep them neat and tidy, tuck them up the back, bring them out with the trunk in. Some enters from the top, and that's taking the tails out to the household consumer unit. The meter cabinet's literally just the other side of this wall, so they come through here into there. There was a little EV board there that we've taken out. We've retained this. If there was only one circuit going off to the heat pump, we could have considered it bringing it straight into the gateway, but because we've got the Cozy hub and the supply there for the heat pump, we wanted to leave Octopus's system as they'd installed it and just resupply it from the smart port. We've also gone for a SCARMA DC isolator on this one. It's a little bit different. So we've got the one string there, and that's going to give us an isolation point for that external to the system. Although that does have DC isolator built into it, you always really need one separate to the system for testing. If you ever need to swap the inverter, I've been through that lots of times before, so that's why we need those. I'll fire up the app just while I waffle away to you a little bit and scoot past the customer's details, because there is an element of interest in here around how the smart port's configured. So I don't think we've got any customer details in there. So we can see here now we have got our PV panels, we've got our gateway, we've got the EV charger, and then this smart port here for the heat pump. You can see at the minute we're just in manual mode and it's on. However, if you wanted to, you can enable these auto time-based schedules for it. So if you want to swing the power on and off to that product, you can do that. Equally, if you are, if I remember how to do this, operation settings, so backup management, you can call it an essential load, and then you can pre-configure that you want that port to cut in if your battery range is above 50%, and you want it to cut off when you reach 15%, and that's adjustable here. So basically, as your batteries have half depleted, if you want to kick the heat pump out to keep the power for your router and running the rest of your home, it will do that. You can adjust this to wherever you want it. It depends how valuable your heating is at that particular time, but this works for other products as well. So if you want, you can use it even for things like dishwashers or fridges or whatever you like. It's really customizable by the Sigenergy team. So I'll just scoot off that screen again and see if I can find the other thing I wanted to mention. So with the EV charger, with this one, so you can see at the moment we're in fast charging mode, but if we go down to PV surplus, you can charge from the battery if you want, but we've got that switched off. Enables temporary fast charging in PV surplus mode, so we've got a little bit of grid charging there which will turn off. And then our priority, we can see we're doing house loads. If you want to adjust these, so I want to do house loads, then I want to do the battery, then I want to do the vehicle, then I want to go to the grid. And that's all fully adjustable to you. The consumer app looks different, but it's just to show you some of the options you've got there. If we go back in to the main screen again, I just keep pulling the phone away because I don't want to reveal any customer information. But if we go to add a system device again, and we can do a smart load, you can see here we've got the gateway or the Sigen store, so you can do it from either. It's not letting me because we've already enabled it for the heat pump, but it would have been able to bring up the list of options. But you can see some of the other integrations you've got now. So it'll integrate with Shelly, certain heat pumps, so you can see SG ready heat pumps it will integrate with, backup generators, you can have grid side sensors, your inverters for your third party PV, and then the Tigo integration here, which is a new one. There's not a lot of data transfers through with that, to be fair, and they're still advising consumers not to use that, but it's nice to see that they are developing it, and I'm sure that will become more useful. So that's the kind of app and control and why we've opted to put the heat pump into the smart port. The EV charger is just on the wall here, and there was a Rolex which we have removed. Reason being, the customer wanted to be able to make sure they weren't depleting the house battery from the EV charger, and you can do clever things with the CTs, but it's always a bit of a fudge and eventually it catches you out. Plus they can take full benefit of any solar power that they want to go into the vehicle by selecting it to do that as and when they need to. Over on this side we have got our PV Ultra route, and it kind of follows the heat pump one. You can see we pop out of the garage here and we're just running across, and then we track up the side of the house into the loft. The guys are on the scaffold at the back of the roof. I'll get them to get some footage up there just so you can see the panels when they're finished. But there's 12 panels going on. We'll speak about that in a minute. These meter boxes are so tiny. So I don't know what it is in the northeast. They only seem to be prevalent up here. But they're like half the width. And there was some Henleys in here because they had split the tails to power the EV board and also the heat pump board. You can see there's a hole through there. We've just retained it for the earth. However, we've managed to get rid of all of the Henley blocks and just gone straight into the meter, and our good old meter fitters are coming back to seal all that out for us as well, which is ideal. We have the Tigo system running as always, and that is going to help us out for rapid shutdown. So if there's any kind of problem with the system that it sees, it'll turn everything off. So if a football ends up on the roof damaging a panel, causing a micro crack, which develops into an arc and such, the system can be safely brought to a stop and the consumer made aware of it before their roof is on fire. And equally, if a firefighter responds to something at the premises, it could be a kitchen fire, nothing to do with the solar system. They know that by isolating the mains around all of this, that the cabling through the house is all shut down. So the loft becomes a safe zone, and they're just dealing with the stuff that's in front of them, basically the batteries and other bits and pieces, rather than worrying about that. You also get the monitoring, so you can see panel by panel what the system's doing. There is some elements of shading on this one, so it's going to help us out with that as well. Shading is the thing that people often focus on with optimizers. It's a bit of a red herring, to be fair. It's obviously very useful if you've got shading, but even when you haven't, it's really good in terms of the rapid shutdown, the monitoring. Panels degrade at different rates, and it depends how you value safety, I guess. Everyone's looking on that payback window with their system. However, the safety of your home and family should trump that for me, and in my opinion, that optimization and rapid shutdown should be on every single system. And that's what we try to encourage for our customers. can see at the minute we've not got any PV switched on, so we're running off the battery. This is what these lights mean on the front. So when it's blue, if you're in the display mode for your kind of state of charge and discharge, that means it's running off battery power. If it's green, it's charging. You can see on the side here we've got it set for the battery level, so it's down there at the minute, roughly looking like 30% I guess. As it fills up, that light will rise to the top here. As it depletes, it will run down to the floor down there. Giving you a visual indication. You can change these to like Christmas tree lights and all kinds of jazzy things, but that is primarily what they'd be used for. So we'll jump up to the roof and have a little look through what the guys have done up there, and I'll voice over a little bit of the installation, but it is, as always, with the Trina bifacial panels. There's 12 of them in 2 rows. One row's longer than the other because it's a weird shaped roof, as you'll see when you go up there. And yeah, it's Van der Valk mounting, all as normal, but we'll have a little voiceover and look at that now. So up on the roof you can see we've got our bifacial panels, and these ones again are from Trina. So they generate on both the top side and the underside. The cost point on these panels is exactly the same as single-sided, so it's an absolute no-brainer for us to utilise them when we're both on and off roof. You don't get a massive amount of reflective light on a roof surface just because of the nature of where they are. However, this particular colour of tile is among the better options for that. It's brighter than the black concrete tiles, and it will, reflect a bit more of that light back up towards the panel. Cumulatively over the course of a year, it's worth having them just because of the opportunity to do that. And you can see here again, these are on Van der Valk mounting. It's the ACE mounting system. We're getting used to that now. I know lots of other installers are still resisting that step and staying with Strongline, but you're not going to be able to get that in the not too distant future. So if you want to stick with Van der Valk, which is the premium mounting kit out there, and one of the few options that hasn't had an issue with its MCS certification, then you're going to have to eventually take that leap and get used to it. And as always, we've got the Pest Fix bird guard on these, and that is to stop any pigeons and rodents from making a home underneath our nice, lovely new array. And these are all Tigo optimised as well, so we've got panel by panel level monitoring and also the rapid shutdown function should we need it. This one was my mistake on survey. I have just recorded the wrong numbers when I've come along and done this. It's one of those where you have to hold your hands up to it. It can and does happen. I've spoken to other installers who've reassured me they've had similar things in the past. And yeah, just one of those. The software as well, this kind of proves the point because it showed it as fitting. My measurements showed it as fitting, and the system we'd proposed clearly didn't. We've lost a row of panels off the top there. We couldn't infill that little gap above the 2 lower panels on the left-hand side, because if we'd gone with a portrait panel, we would have been over the ridge, and if we popped a landscape one in there, we would have been within 150 millimetres of it, which is too close for our MCS rules. So we've just had to drop that additional panel from out of there, which is a shame, but it's one of those where when we're wanting these things to be compliant and stay on the roof for the 25 years, you have to make sure they are done correctly and safely, as we have here. So the mistake with this one boils down to the actual survey. I came to this one myself. I can't blame anybody else. It was me who did it. But I hadn't noticed that the tile covering was smaller than normal. So usually you're 300 millimeters plus. So when you count the tiles, you get a good idea of what will fit. And the software, in this case Open Solar, had showed the array we'd spec'd fitting as well. However, on getting up there on the scaffold and measuring, the system we'd proposed was going to be touching the ridge and in the gutter, which is obviously too close to the extremities of what you could fit. You would end up with the rainwater spilling over the gutters onto the floor below, so we had to speak to the customer. We've reduced the price, obviously. I think we've lost 5 panels in the end. We've basically lost the top row, which is very frustrating, but these are the things that can catch you out. I had measured the size and angle of the roof, and I thought we had 600 mil to play with for the top and bottom, and I kind of verified that myself by counting the tiles, but that subsequent 20 mil difference across each tile all the way up the roof adds up, and that caught me out. I think we've only had one other system where we've lost panels off the design once we've got up onto the roof, and I think that one was due to a chimney that we'd not noticed, a little vent tile that we'd not noticed coming through for a flue, if memory serves me correctly. So these things can crop up. It's how you deal with them. So we've, as always, got the customer a box of chocolates, a nice card, and we've tried to include some extras through the programme of work as well in terms of what we've delivered. The optimizer has been a good example. It's free issue on this one. And yeah, hopefully the customer sees that value and forgives me. They've still got a very large system with near 6 kilowatts of generation there, and most likely we'll be adding to this on the north facing roof in the future, so they'll still get some extra generation out of all of that. But yeah, it's frustrating. I don't like getting things wrong. It really annoys me, but we're not infallible and mistakes will happen, and when they do, it's how you deal with them. So I'm earning it and sharing it on YouTube. I spoke to other installers about this. They've made similar mistakes themselves over the years of fitting these systems, and they just said it's one of those things that you have to stand behind and accept and move forward. Worse things will happen. Matty and Nathan have forgiven me as well. So yeah, lesson learned, lesson learned. Yeah, this system is absolutely cracking. So if you're in the market for PV and you're looking for top of the range premium kit that is well worth the money and will deliver for you for decades ahead, Sigenergy is the way to go. I adopted early on with a Give Energy system at my home, which has been perfectly fine, but I do have lots of envy with Matthew because he's got this in his house, and I really wish I had it at my house as well. But this is one of those things, isn't it? You can't just be swapping your PV system like you would maybe swap your phone or your laptop every few years. To get full value and the environmental benefit of it, you've got to stick it out for a decade at least. So I'm riding that system through as long as I possibly can with that one, and this customer's got a better bit of kit than I have. But there you go, there you go. The warranties on these are 10 years as standard. We'll have a little chat about that actually. I'll spin you around and we'll run through that, because there's some things people are getting a bit confused in the installation side of things, and I just want to explain that on this video. So the warranties on the batteries and inverters are 10 years. There is some confusion around the LED lights on the front because they only give a 2-year warranty on the indicators on the inverter. However, that doesn't mean that they won't replace the inverter if it goes faulty in 10 years. Is what can happen is through UV damage, if people site these outdoors, the LED strips can wear out more quickly. It's just the nature of what they are, and they kind of have to cover that off for themselves. So it could be a case that your LEDs have stopped functioning, but the inverter is perfectly safe to keep using, and it depends how critical those LED lights are to you. Obviously, if it's been installed inside a garage like this and something was to go wrong with them, that's one that Sigenergy would be able to deal with, I'm sure. But yeah, just to cover that off, it is a full 10-year warranty on all 3 of these items. The Gateway, I think, has a slightly different warranty again for the protected devices in it. I think they're 2 years, but the product as an assembly is longer than that, and it's again referencing onto your data sheets and instructions for your full 10-year warranties is important to understand the subtle differences. And for Tesla, for example, with their Gateway, they don't supply any of the switchgear, so none of it is warranted in their Gateway, but because Sigenergy do, and they issue the manufacturer's warranty from Chint in this case to the actual switchgear, you know, they're getting a bit of pushback from that, but it's 2 years more warranty than you're getting on a Tesla Gateway that doesn't come with any switchgear in it, depending on what your installer might actually fit in there. So it's a weird one because it is an amalgamation of product, and I'm sure as these update, there is new versions of the Gateway incoming to the UK market. That'll be dealt with. But again, you've got a nice long warranty on there, and you can pay to extend all of these. Another question I get asked a lot is the warranty extension packs. They're between sort of 200 and 300 quid for each module, battery and inverter ish. Again, you have to speak with your installer because it's them who will have to arrange that for you. But if you wanted to get, in this case, system, you'd be looking at another 700 or 800 quid or so, 246, yeah, ish, for warranty on your stack to be increased by another 5 years. So you could go up to 15 years if you wanted. And again, that depends on your view with the kit, if you want it to be warranted for longer than 10 years, or if you're happy once you've got there. Anything else is a bonus. I would expect this stuff to last much longer than 10 years, but you can't expect the manufacturers to have an ever-rolling warranty window on kit. It's not fair considering the technology and the hard work and heavy lifting these systems do. But yeah, my hope would be in a nice garage environment like this one is, out of the elements, working gently most days, it will last beyond the warranty window by some considerable distance, but no one's going to promise you that. It's one of those. In terms of our warranties installers, we issue as minimum the 5-year insurance-backed warranty on this system. Now that does mean if there is a problem with our work and we've gone out of business, there's an insured policy behind that will look after you for any of the work that we'd carried out. If something happens and we're still trading, obviously we need to deal with that. And other installers are making a bit of a mistake, because I think they believe they're buying the policy, and then if something goes wrong, the insurers respond to it and react to it. But if you're issuing a 10-year, for example, insurance-backed warranty, you need to be looking after that kit for the 10 years. And if you can't, because you're not trading, then the warranty insured policy kicks in. So it's something to be aware of as a consumer there. So with us, we stick to 5 years. We think that's a reasonable amount of time, and we also are familiar with that from kind of the CPS angle of things with a Part P. I think that's like a 6-year window you have to give as a guarantee on your work to the customer. Again, we're quite confident that our work will last a significant longer period than that. But if you keep issuing these 10-year warranties on a rolling cycle, eventually something's going to crop up. And you've just got to be aware of that. Make sure you're factoring that into your pricing, I suppose. So if you're issuing that longer warranty period, your risk is higher as an installer, so make sure you're pricing that in on your projects. So ultimately, us issuing the 5-year warranty, the customers are paying for it, and our ongoing support of it in each project we deliver, because that's a price on our service at the end of the day. So something to be aware of there on that one. If you are a customer and you're looking for a system in your home and you value safety and performance along with quality, then get in touch with us. We're working all over. I've had an inquiry today from down in Brighton that looks like it's progressing to order, which is fantastic. We've been up into Scotland, over into Wales, not over to Northern Ireland yet, but we rule nothing out. If the project's interesting and you're prepared to cover some of the costs that we would incur through travel, then we are up for pretty much any challenge. We seem to end up with some of these slightly tricky ones that other people maybe aren't willing to take on. They want the easy rinse and repeat kind of projects. This one wasn't that bad, in fairness. The cable tails run straight past where we've sited the gateway and battery, and it wasn't an especially difficult route up to the roof. But the one last week, that would be the video preceding this one, because I'm trying to get on a bit of roll with the content, very much was a challenge with the detached garage, meter box, switch fuse, all of the roofs being covered with panels. That was a tricky one that other installers had kind of messed the customer about with. I think they never had a few people put their actual prices in, and other people come back with crazy prices because they were clearly not wanting to do it. So yeah, if you're in that kind of position and you're looking for someone who you can rely on and will turn up when they say they will, deliver what they say they will, and be fair and reasonable at every single stage through the project, then get in touch. There's a link over to the website below. If you've got any questions about this video and anything we've spoken about that you want a bit more information in, drop it in. I do try and get through every comment. It's getting a bit busy now with all of that. I made a promise when the channel was quite small, and I think I had like 10,000 subscribers, that I would respond to every comment, but now that's just not practical because there is so many all the time. But I do try, and if I happen to see yours, I'll do my best to answer it. Otherwise, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you to these wonderful customers who've looked after us so well on this project, with teas, coffee, some lemon drizzle cake as well, and your understanding with the slight miscalculation on what would fit on your roof. You've been absolute superstars, and it's been a pleasure working for you, and I hope you enjoy this system for many, many years to come, turning sunshine into power. We'll see you on the next one.